Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Johnny Sue, spinnings on the ones and twos. Fam, you see, I was really serious about that one,
were.
right? Well.
But I wasn't.
I know.
Because that's how it is.
It's so funny because whenever I'm a goofball, you're like, oh my God, you're too much over the top. And then now here I am, I'm serious. and you get all like pausing, giggling, smiling, and go.
Well, the turtle was like on its shell and it was like spinning.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the American people. They're just like on their shell and they don't know what to do and they're spinning.
Oh, fam. I still like the wolf strutting. I think in Johnny's new intro, that wolf strutting is just, it's too much. Every time I see him strutting to the beat, it just makes me laugh.
Fam.
You got your fam shirt on.
Yeah, I do.
You want to know why I was serious, fam?
Why, fam?
Because for me, and I think the crew, probably maybe a little similar feelings about this one, that this is a really important kind of show.
Yeah.
Where a certain article was written, and did you get any phone calls from people saying, "Oh yeah, we saw the Time Magazine's article. We're sorry." You were right, Convo Couch.
Only Putin's puppet,
That's it?
Misty, because she's Putin's puppet, called me and said, "Hey, everybody owes the Convo Couch an apology because the Convo Couch was right." And we're going to explain to you exactly why we were right, but. If you read this article and you understand election integrity, and even if you don't, and you're going to read this language that they use, it's very obvious what they're doing here. And it's unnerving and it's enraging and it makes me want to punch somebody in the face right now.
Oh, yeah. And the way they kind of go about it is they justify. I wouldn't even say it's a big obfuscation because I think it's more of a deep fake. Because they're telling you one thing, but they're actually doing nefarious things behind it. Right. And the things that they are telling you, they're telling you that they did it for your own benefit.
Correct.
The secret
cabal.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate gaslight.
Yeah.
Like, it really, really is. Everybody needs to watch that movie, Gaslight.
Yeah. Right? And it is a giant gaslight, too, as well. But, I mean, I don't know. I want your opinions out there. We're going to break it down. We're going to give you a little bit more perspective about what was actually going on behind the scenes, because a lot of things they gloss over, and there's a reason why they gloss over them. And we're going to give you, once again, we've been saying a lot of these things.
Right.
If there's any regret I have in the past, it's not going in to the smaller states and counties and showing you the rule changes. We always gave you the macro. Remember when we talked about, certain things, laws being changed and why they were doing it, and bills being presented? We gave you the macro. I should have done a little bit more than the micro, but it's not a sexy subject, and we were always subject to get pulled down, demonetized, and spanked on the hand.
We did.
Yeah.
So.
But I'm wondering if for people who read this article, and it's a marathon of an article, we did, if they think this alone constitute as rigging, you know what I'm saying? Tipping the scale and using private money.
But it is. Like, alone, it is. If you take out the machines, if you take out the vote by mail, if you take out the ballot harvesting, if you take out everything that we've been talking about, if you even take out voter suppression, that is the only thing, like, some of these progressives look at, just voter suppression, like, which is very important, but it's only one aspect.
It is only one aspect.
Even that. Every manipulation invalidates the election. So when people say that these insurrectionists were interrupting democracy, the democracy has long been interrupted by our very own government. There hasn't been democracy for a long time. And I say this and people are like, yeah, like, they don't get, like, I'm telling you that from the moment they manipulated the Hunter Biden story, at that moment, from even before that, when they manipulated the Bernie Sanders's election, the primary, for even before that, we can go back to 4 years ago for Hillary Clinton, how the DNC admitted. From that moment, none of our elections have been valid because we would have had a completely different outcome. Yeah.
And this was a giant double down on tipping the scales. And we're going to give you a little bit more in depth of what was really going on behind the scenes, because we know these things. And, what an election is, fam, is it's just a contest. It's just a game. It's a giant game. So, I mean, there was this one scene in this movie, Rounders, and all these judges were sitting there playing poker. And this young freshman, played by Matt Damon, comes in there, and he shows them after, and he starts explaining to the judge the game of poker. And this is a judge, a brilliant man. He's like, oh my God, I didn't realize there was that much aspect to the game. And I've always said that, like, I've kind of always questioned, like, how the fuck do all these smart people that went to all these colleges, and I'm talking about the people we like on the left, how did they not see the election integrity stuff? Well, they never paid attention to the aspects of the game behind the game. And that's what this scene reminds me of. And like I said this before, I come from a bookmaking Italian family. I hung out in a pool hall. I gambled all the time. That was my bad habit. I really did. You know what I'm saying? But I know every aspect of what's going on. And I have this Italian culture where we used to say, hey, Vegas wasn't built on winners, right? So, I mean, that's what, when you look at elections, you start looking behind the game and you can see the forms of manipulation. And it reminds me of like this big giant carnival with all these games when you go, it should be easy to toss a ball and hit that thing and get into the basket. But you can't see that thing's tilted and you have a 1 in 1,000 chance of getting it in there.
Right. And you're never going to get that giant panda bear.
You never do. And it's just simple games. And that's what our elections are. And that's how they've been, because they really dupe the public. And what this article does is dupe the public, and it dupes the public into the thinking more than anything that they were fighting against the orange man bad, to save democracy, and that their actions are okay, and that their actions are justified. No, they are not. Thank you, Time Magazine. So you ready to get into this? Because this is really, I'm giddy to do this show right now because I'm waiting for those phone calls, fam. We haven't got them, and we're going to go in more in depth, and we're going to show you stuff. All right? So let's get here. So the thesis of this article. What happened to my thing? I lost it. Did I remove it from the folder? Oh, there it is. It's not in mine here. Let me get the thesis about it. The title is provocative enough. The secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. The story goes on to describe in precise detail a coalition of various powerful special interest groups that united beginning a year before the election to ensure Joe Biden would win.
And where is this thesis from?
I had the thing up here. I lost it and whatnot. I went and looked up different breakdowns of the article and gave thesis of what's going on. I don't know why it's not in my thing. This fucking sucks. I lost the link and everything. But pretty much I went out there, and I wanted to get somebody else's opinion on what I want to get an opinion on the thesis that wasn't mine. Right? So I wanted to go out there, look at it, say, hey, this is where we got it from. There's a bunch of breakdowns, a bunch of articles on this article. So I lost the link. And that's what the article says too, right there, the secret history of the shadow
Yeah, they say
campaign.
it themselves.
In the title. So,
right.
But what it really is, what it's really saying according to Pasta, and I put this up here, Johnny, we can get into this one. I don't mean to get conspiracy theory on you here, but it almost feels like the CIA wrote this piece. It not only tries to make you believe in a Cinderella scenario where the working class bands together with corporate CEOs from both sides of the aisle, but it obfuscates every attempt to change election rules or laws in the name of decency, accessibility, inclusivity, when in fact, the changing of those laws would simply allow for more fraud from an already broken election system that lacks not only integrity, but transparency. The biggest red flag for me is the notion of the ends justifying the means, because throughout the article, there is a constant referencing that the cabal did game the system justifiably to save democracy from the evil yellow man bad, or orange man bad, I'm sorry, I put yellow instead of orange, from attempting to steal the election himself. But this red herring should backfire, because if you know anything about the general election, you know it's the states and counties that make up all the election laws, rendering the White House and the federal government powerless. And
it is precisely that last sentence that certain people have used against us, saying, well, it's different because on primary and in general, like they don't control, like the federal government, the Trump and Biden, they don't control the election. No, yes, we know. It's controlled by the state and the counties, okay, and the Secretary of State. So this is a justification for our point.
Yeah.
Rather than a proving that it's not.
And there are federal guidelines, but each state and county makes its own rules.
Correct.
Yeah. They pick their own workers. They do everything. You know what I'm saying? They have the eyes of what's going on. They have control. So it's almost impossible for the president and the White House to come in and try to steal themselves, unless he's like the Bush family, where you have a lot of friends in high places and people that can help you cheat and game the system. So that was my thesis of what's going on. But now I want to break the article down into 3 parts, fam. Number 1, I want to talk about the rules and the election laws this cabal attempted to, but in some cases they actually changed the laws to swing the election to Biden.
And I want to say you're using the word cabal because the article itself mentions cabal, literally. Yes. Because cabal is a word that is often used by right-wingers when they're talking about a cabal of elites that control, like 6 people control all the world, and there's that they put in the whole Jewish cabal and all these things. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what the article is saying. They're using the word cabal. themselves. This is why Pasta is using the word cabal, because I know that somebody out there is going to say, oh, you're using the language of the right wing. Blah, 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 blah. No, it's in the fucking article.
Okay. I also want to talk about the second part. I mean, thank you. That's why I love when you do this stuff. I want to talk about the players and the coalitions involved, the justified dark money, and we're going to get into this too as well. See, Johnny's putting up cabal. I mean, the whole thing that they're telling you that there's a secret cabal working behind the scenes to ensure integrity and transparency. A secret cabal. You don't know about it.
It sounds like you. Because that's what some of these people were saying. But that's what I'm saying. It was a psyop.
Yeah.
We now know.
So after we talk about the rules and the laws, the cabal changed, we talk about the players involved, the coalitions that were formed, the justified dark money. We have to talk about why it was written and what we have to do moving forward. There is a part of this right now which talks about the influence on big tech as far as going out there and kind of changing the narrative, what we talked about, the Hunter Biden story and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Some people have already done some videos on that, so I'm not going to go deep into that. We'll touch base on that, and you can make your own opinions about that. Now, I want to also note that Johnny notes that this article wrote the Pelosi.
The author of the article.
The author of the article wrote Pelosi a biography of
Nancy Pelosi.
of Nancy Pelosi. I almost read his words. Right there. Are those my words? No, that's John's words, right?
F face Nance. That's
okay. But weird. I also want to point out that she didn't write this by herself. You know what I'm saying? Like, she had a lot of help in this giant article, whatnot, and it's really not a co-op. The only part that's a co-op is the opinion that they were doing it justifiably.
A co-op?
Yeah.
You mean? Yeah.
No, I mean an op-ed, a co-op.
An op-ed. Okay.
It's not an op-ed, because the only opinion it's kind of inserting is the fact that they had the right to do it, and they were doing it to defend freedom and democracy and whatnot. That's why they hardly mention Joe Biden. They mention him here and there in this article, because they're not telling you who they're replacing the orange man bad with is another freaking corporate piece of shit and whatnot. So that's the only part, because they mention all these groups, they mention all these people, they mention all these tactics, and those are 100% true. They happen. The reason why we were so, strong on our feelings that this election was fugazi is because we saw what was going on beforehand, and we saw them trying to game the system to swing the election for Joe Biden. And then Joe Biden, he had that Freudian slip. Remember we said, is it Joe Biden being stupid or is it a Freudian slip? And he says, we've gathered the best voting fraud team out there.
Yeah, he said that. He literally said that.
We
talked
that,
about it.
Right?
We did a show and we put it in there.
He literally said that, and it was a Freudian slip, because this is the team he was talking about. So let's talk about changing the rules to game the system. All right, John, I'm going to put the sentence up here. We're going to start reading right now. The handshake between business and labor was just one component of the vast cross-partisan campaign to protect the election, an extraordinary shadow effort dedicated not to winning the vote, but to ensuring it would be free, fair, credible, and uncorrupted. Now, first of all, why would they say this when they're doing this in the shadows? How can they justify that it was a secret cabal doing this to make sure that it was free, fair, and credible and uncorrupted?
Yeah.
For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up America's institutions as they came under simultaneous attacks from a remorseless pandemic and an autocratically inclined president. And that language is throughout the whole article, fam, when they keep using words like autocrat and, killer of democracy and all that shit. Through much of this activity took place on the left. Though much of this activity took place on the left, it was separate from the Biden campaign and crossed ideological lines, with crucial contributions by nonpartisan and conservative actors. The scenario... I'm sorry, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say the reason they're putting that in is because to say, well, this isn't one-sided, this isn't biased. The problem is the establishment is its own thing. Whether they could be Democrats, they could be Republicans, they could be whatever. They're still establishment.
Yeah. And establishment characters on the right hated Donald Trump just as much as they did on the left. The Lincoln Project, all those groups, right?
Right.
They hate him just as much. The scenario of the shadow campaigners were desperate to stop. The scenario of the shadow campaigners were desperate to stop was not a Trump victory. It was an election so calamitous that no result could be discerned at all. A failure of the central act of the democratic self-governance that has been a hallmark of America since its founding. So what they're trying to say is that they wanted to make sure that this election was fair and kind of get in there to make sure it was secure. Once again, kind of putting Trump as the face of a person who can change the elections himself. Which, once again, we explain, elections are not run federally. There are federal guidelines in which the states and the counties got to abide to, but the federal government really doesn't have the play. And in fact, we've said this before in this show many times, right, fam? Secretary of State and the registrars or the Secretary of Elections have way more power than the federal government and the president does. Their work touched every aspect of the election. Anything to say on that, guys? That first sentence, right? Their work touched every aspect of the elections.
Right.
They got states to change voting systems and laws and help secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding.
This right there, that
wow.
they got they're admitting, it's like a confessional. They're admitting what they're doing, but they're using broad terms and they're putting a positive spin into saying this had to be done in order to protect us from the tyrant that was Donald Trump. And this isn't even a commentary on Donald Trump or how much of a tyrant you think he was or wasn't. I think he was a terrible president. That's beside the point. The fact that they manipulated this election, and they're admitting to you they did, but they're just being extremely broad because you, the vast majority of Americans, do not know what they're talking about. But when we read this, when they're talking about they got states to change voting systems and laws that help secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding. They literally did that in Los Angeles. They did it in Wisconsin. I mean, in Los Angeles, they started with the primary before but that was part of it. They went into the ballot marking device, a more computerized system. They had high tech systems, and they literally manipulated the signature verification so anything would pass. I mean, these are the things that we know that they did because it's on record, on documents that they did in Texas had thrown out some machines because they didn't meet standards.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about this is what they did, they're being really broad. But if they went into specifics, they would have to outline exactly everything that they did.
And we're going to go into that too. And we're going to also look at right now too as well the next sentence that started off about like how they frame it. But before they do that, I want you to give your opinion because I think a lot of people kind of would gloss off the fact that there was private funding involved. Like
right.
how, I mean, really to tell you the truth, that should be the biggest red flag of all.
Right.
Private funding is not going to come in unless it has a objective,
right.
unless it has a need, unless it wants something. So all this private funding money, and we'll talk about some of that, it's in the article. Once again, they put it right in your face, fam. And sometimes I feel like they're putting this right in your face and somehow it's just like the Neera Tanden thing, like all these burners kind of justifying all the warmonger picks in the cabinet, justifying Neera Tanden. They're just going to justify all these kind of law changes and kind of gloss over it, not get into the tooth and nails of what's going on. And meanwhile, we said for a while, they fuck over all their elections, especially the Democratic establishment. Mm-hmm. And right now we have these KDEMs going on, and we hear people crying about they're getting fucked over now. Well, if you don't stop them then, how are they going to, you said it was okay for them to do this now. And I also want to show you what they do because they really kind of like, and this is why I think it was like written by the CIA. The next line, they fended off voter suppression lawsuits, recruited armies of poll workers, and got millions of people to vote by mail for the first time. They successfully pressured social media companies to take a harder line against disinformation and use data-driven strategies to fight viral smears.
Precisely.
Wow. They're talking about censorship.
They're talking
the Hunter Biden story.
Exactly.
You couldn't put that. I mean, Glenn Greenwald quit The Intercept over that. Yes. I mean, I'm not going to stop talking about that because the fact that a journalist can't be honest on a story, and then The Intercept and Ryan Grimm go out and pretend that they are, just the epitome of progressivism and progressive journalism, yet he can't print something that is true and has been verified and documented. Like outside of this echo chamber of the Democratic establishment, like it's disgusting. And that's what I was saying. From the moment they did that, from the moment they were taking things down that made Joe Biden look bad because of his own record, that is election interference.
It is. And they also did this on a smaller scale where a lot of you weren't paying attention. There's a couple papers out there really that are like, when they talk about certain stuff, even the Gateway Pundit, half the shit they talk about, I'm like, no, but what they did do is they had a lot of people show up and talk about little things within the laws, within the committees, within the county committees and all these little meetings, and they kind of reported on that stuff. They kept censoring their stuff, taking their stuff down too as well. And they're not the only one. We're talking about people like us. They got the same treatment. They had videos taken down. I want to remind everybody that the first video we got taken down and the warning we got was Super Tuesday. We just showed what was going on election day, and then we started talking out about some of the numbers coming in and saying, hey, this is not right, because once again, if you're an election integrity activist, you understand the way voting works, how it comes in blocks, how it already has a sample size and a pattern. That's why they call these elections so early all the time, is because they are very true to those patterns. Well, in this particular case, those patterns were blown up. And we'll get more into that later. I'm not going to really... we talk about that all the time. We're going to concentrate on the article and stay right over there. But let me read up the rest of this sentence right now. Yep. But once again, censorship. Okay? And all those laws they changed. They were not for accessibility. They were not for inclusivity. They were so they can game the system more. That's right. What they did. And they fool you because they say, oh, this is for accessibility, this is for inclusivity. And you're like, if you vote against that, you're being racist.
Yeah, and they get all the progressives to cheer them on because they're like, oh, it's okay, it's accessible. It's all these people that are vulnerable, they're going to be able to vote. And that's how they manipulate people through emotions.
Yeah. And when you own Hollywood and you own the media and you can get your information out there. So they executed national public awareness campaigns that help Americans understand how the vote count would unfold over the days or weeks, preventing Trump's conspiracy theories and false claims of victory from getting more traction. Okay, now this is something we have to talk about because this is when we gave Bernie Sanders a little guff on this and stuff like that. They were already setting up their cheating right now, giving themselves ample amount of rooms by saying this is what would happen because they had a backup plan in play, right? And that was, it's early, it's going to look like Donald Trump is winning. I think Bernie Sanders, he's going to look like Donald Trump's going to win, but then a couple days later, all these votes are going to come in for Joe Biden.
Yep.
Which it doesn't happen like that because most of the mail-in votes come in earlier.
They were already counted.
We've gone and documented stuff and shown you. We went to where the tabulation machines are in Los Angeles County, and we showed you them processing maybe 1 million ballots the time we were there. You know what I'm saying? Because once again, those machines count 100,000 ballots per hour, and there was 12 of them running, and they were all running nonstop, and they're just picking up these ballots and moving them along and stuff.
And they're not supposed to.
They're not supposed
to run them through them.
Not at all. I mean, that's where the argument
tally
is, too.
system 2.0 machine.
Yeah.
Smartmatic.
But that's the thing. It was only the excess of extra vote by mail should come in, whatnot.
Right.
After not that big of a sample. In other words, if he was down by 10,000, 12,000, maybe even 20,000 votes, then Joe Biden could have caught up. But down 130,000 votes, and then all of a sudden... That's impossible. It's an improbability. I can't prove it to you unless you let me look at these things. We don't have fair audits, but we'll talk about audits tomorrow, not today. Where was I picking up for? After Election Day, they monitored every pressure point to ensure that Trump could not overturn the result. The untold story of the election is that thousands of people of both parties who accomplished the triumph of American democracy and its very foundation, says Norm Eisen, a prominent lawyer and a former Obama administration official who recruited Republicans and Democrats to the board of the Voter Protection Program. Fam, I want to, Johnny, if you can put when I have put this slanted stuff so we can put it up on the screen as I read it, this is my opinions right here so you know that they are. Some of the laws that were changed in 2020 general election were changed unconstitutionally. And that's a big thing to talk about it because they did that constantly. And the changing of these laws are disguised in the form of accessibility and inclusivity. But when it comes to elections, we must secure them by not looking at the positive effects of the change, fam, but by measuring the negative aspects in which the rich can cheat the working class. So even though they give you this bill of goods that they're doing this to get more people involved, to be to show less suppression, they're doing it to cheat and game the system themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, They put things like, oh, we have a voter protection program or we have this and that, but they put people in power who have a stake in a certain outcome and who have a bias and who aren't doing this to really let democracy decide, who are manipulating the election and are manipulating who becomes what because of whatever it interests them. That's it. And they frame it like this is more democratic. We're giving you more choices. We're giving you a more ability to vote. We have all these people in all these places that are discounting what Trump is saying. But what they're not telling you is who those people have ties to.
Yeah. And how those change can lead to more fraud. That's the biggest thing, because then they tell you we're doing this so more people of color can vote, fam.
Right.
And what the neo-progressive order does is they jump on that right away emotionally. No. If you're against this, you're not being you're going against people of color.
Right.
But they don't also tell you the negative aspects that can happen to that, rather than looking down the nuanced rabbit hole and how this system can be gamed. The fact that these drop boxes are out everywhere, that's not a secure election.
There's no chain of custody.
There's no and we're going to talk about that. So let's talk about the laws the establishment tried to change or did change when it came to it. We're going to start with ballot harvesting, okay? Yep. We're going to start with the bill, because this is the thing we didn't look up, fam. We didn't realize how much ballot harvesting would play into this election right now, because when Tulsi presented her bill, all these states had not solidified their laws of sending out all the ballots that were on their voter rolls, okay? And you could just see it. I want to talk about it. She's the only Democrat to sign on to this. Mm-hmm. And I just want to bring up the list of co-sponsors and the time they did it. So here are the co-sponsors. I can go over there myself. You can see it's a Republican, Rodney Davis. And then you can see, look at the dates, though. 9/17, 10/1, 10/1, 10/9, 10/9, 10/16, 10/16, and then 10/20. Eventually Mark Walker, and it's all Republicans, but it was like as they were getting information and they were going, holy shit, wait a second, this ballot harvesting can be awful, and the line she used, nobody should get between the person and the ballot box. Now, we should ask this question, fam, and we should argue this, because there are people out there, they refuse to come debate me, they refuse to come talk to me about it. The Humanist Report.
Like Michael Tracy.
He talked about ballot harvesting, like she's putting out this conspiracy theories that ballot harvesting is bad.
Right.
Like, wait a second, you think ballot harvesting is good? Let's talk about this, because I don't know where you're coming from where you think that ballot harvesting is okay. And that's the thing you have to talk about. Ballot harvesting means a third party can take in your ballot, and as many ballots as they want. So I can take in 1,000 ballots and I can walk them in and drop them off.
Right.
And I say this all the time about how bad it can be. Now, they say it's always about, we got to help elder people, whatnot. But let's look at what the Chicago Tribune wrote real quick here. And I'm going to point out this one paragraph here, these two paragraphs. It says, although widely practiced and rarely found to be abused, talking about ballot harvesting here now. I love the way they always say rarely found to be abused. The rule permitting a third party to collect and return multiple ballots remains a source of partisan dispute. Those fights are likely to continue up to Election Day as states adjust their laws for the pandemic. One of the few recent instances of fraud related to ballot collection happened in North Carolina in 2018, resulting in a congressional election being overturned. A congressional election being overturned.
And I believe that was the Democrats that got...
I think it
was the Democrats that got cheated.
I believe in this particular situation. Yeah.
This is why this isn't about siding with Republicans. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
There's no control when you're ballot harvesting. There's no chain of custody. You can't track it. You can't track any of it. I can track my Uber Eats, but I can't track that. And that's a problem. And when Tulsi Gabbard, really quick, fam, when she brought it up, she did a video, and somebody had interviewed her from PragerU or something. She had gone on their show or something. Yeah. And they had, what had happened, they took, what they did is they took her video that she had done independently and they put it as their own. And so people were saying, she's working for PragerU, when that wasn't the case. She had done that video independently regarding ballot harvesting. And then they turned it around and made it an attack on people of color, and AOC Ilhan Omar attacked her for it, and then she just retorted and asked, hey, okay, that's fine, I apologize for any insinuation that this had to do with that, but can you please sign this bill? This isn't good for our elections. And they never responded to her.
She also believes, she said, if not, why not?
Why not? She said, why not?
Stuff like that. Because, and I want to read the second paragraph to the Chicago Tribune, because this is something to point out. It says, more than half the states allow a third party to collect ballots. More than half the states allow. I mean, guys, come on. And political groups and campaigns from both parties have run ballot collection programs aimed at boosting turnout and ensuring voters who are older, homebound, disabled, or live far from the U.S. Postal Services can get their ballot returned. So once again, fam, they sell it as like, oh, we're trying to get people involved. We're trying to increase participation and stuff. We're trying to help older people. We're trying to do whatever and stuff.
Which there should be that option, but it shouldn't be exploited, and also there should be a method of security. Put some sort of receipt, some sort of tracking, be able to track where these ballots come.
A camera on the person the whole time.
I don't know how, but it could be done. It could be fucking done. And every major country that has far better elections than us, they don't even do vote by mail. People literally have to get off their ass.
Yeah, they eliminated
it. And vote in person. They ask for more identifications in every country. I'm against asking for more identification. I think that we shouldn't be blaming the voter for the system's ineffective, just the functionality of the system. But then we need to fix the system.
Yeah. I mean, I am for adequate identification of sorts.
I mean, it should be ID, but then it should be like free IDs.
Yeah.
And easy DMV.
Well, I mean, in Venezuela they do thumbprints too, right? So you got to put your thumbprint on the ballot too as well. I know they get, but I'm just going to say how other countries take it serious, and that might be over the top. But once again, if you show up in person to vote, it's a lot harder to mess with an election than it is through the absentee practices, and that's where they game the system as far as ballot clustering, right? Okay, in other words, stuffing the ballot box. That's when you get those absentees coming in. Then you can fix it on the back end when you have proprietary software. So there's different ways in which you can game the system. Not only is that board slanted when you try to put the ball and hit it and go into the little laundry basket, the ball they give you is loaded too as well, and it's too bouncy. So I mean, there's different multiple ways of doing this situation. And I just put up that, I'm not going to read into this article, but the Republicans were kind of screaming about this, the threat of ballot harvesting. And then Jonny just put up an article right now. Jonny, what's the title of that article?
Understanding the election scandal in North Carolina's 9th district.
He was talking about that where I think it was Harris, the incumbent, got cheated.
Well, yeah. I brought it up because this Chicago Tribune article, talks about that 2018 North Carolina, but they never reference anything to it.
Exactly.
So you don't see, so you have to do a whole nother search, right?
Yeah.
Because a good article would reference some stuff there, like, a good article writer. But here it just says, I think it says that... It says allegations fall into several categories, and then they reference something there. I haven't looked into any of this, but some voters claim that individuals came to their houses and collected their unsealed absentee ballots. This is the 2018 congressional election that got overturned.
Yep.
Others allege that they received absentee ballots that they never requested. Supposedly, the Democrat Dan McCready beat the incumbent Mark Harris. Or no, Harris had beat the incumbent GOP holder of the seat in the primary. Okay.
And here's the thing, Jonny. They gloss over it. They don't go into it. And that's what this article does. They gloss over things so you go, yeah. Oh, well, they were changing those laws to help people vote more easily and accessibly. Like, no. You have to look into each aspect of what laws they're changing. You have to look into every single situation when it does happen. If you have to turn over a congressional seat because ballot harvesting was the main reason why it was turned over, then you have a very serious problem. Elections can be cheated. They already showed you. We have proof that elections can be cheated because of ballot harvesting. Am I wrong? Am I wrong, fam?
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think the key to actually getting any sort of change here is to note that there are people who can't just walk over there and vote.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a mechanism for those people to be able to do so. However, there needs to be a secure way to have a chain of custody to make sure that those votes don't end up being manipulated by somebody else. I'm not saying people do it. It's organization. This is organized. Like, this isn't, Pasta or Jonny or anybody else going there and trying to rig this election. It's just an institutional type of fraud.
And there's so much stuff going on with elections that with the article that's a marathon article we can't even get into. Like, we talked about the mail-in ballots, like who makes them? And, you talk about, and I talked to John Roberts Brakey the other day in Arizona. We're going to talk about the auditing process maybe tomorrow and what's going on in Arizona, because we have no time to talk about the auditing process, because this article, once Joe Biden wins the election, it's just bullshit. They don't talk about the auditing process, the recounting process. They don't tell you how fugazi it is, how fake it is, that the auditing process and the recounting process all around the country, especially in those 6 contested states, are just as messed up as the election itself. They're not real audits.
And I want to stay on topic, but real quick, in this bill that Tulsa introduced, I just want to reiterate, because, people like Jordan Sheridan were saying that the federal government regulates the election, right? We already said that was false.
Yeah.
Here it says that Congress finds the elections clause in the United States Constitution provides the states the responsibility of the administration of the elections process within their jurisdiction. So that's where the Constitution says that's the power of the state to hold elections.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not anything federally.
Exactly. But then, they'll argue, well, this state was Republican, this state was Republican.
Right.
It's like, yeah, it's the establishment. Joe
matter.
Biden is closer to those Republicans than Donald Trump ever was. One thing that ballot harvesting ferments is the destruction of the chain of custody.
Right.
The chain of custody is one of, if not the most important practice in our elections, fam. An election with a transparent chain of custody produces a strong, secure elections. Me and Johnny showed up at where those mailing places were, and that's the one thing I was really harping on, right, Johnny? I want to know where the drivers were coming from. I wanted to know the routes. I wanted to know that the chain of custody was secure. I'm like, can they take any route they want? And that's the whole thing. If you get these ballots out of sight and nobody's watching them, there's no security watching them, there's nothing, what can happen? I mean, any nefarious character that has a lot of money and power can change results if you knock the chain of custody right in the balls. And that's what these laws do. They knock the chain of custodies right in the balls. Another part, number 2, the use and the placement of ballot boxes. This is another law they really worked on, fam. I didn't even airdrop you, Johnny, the ballot box. But it's very simple. We showed you these ballot boxes before. They're big, giant ballot boxes. There's no cameras on them. There's nothing watching them. There's no time of any logs of anybody picking the stuff up. There's no count of how many they pick up. We don't know if one person picked it up, and then the law requires 2.
And there were reports that some were set out on fire. There was reports that... that's the only report I really remember.
Well, no, what the Republicans were doing in California is they started setting up their own drop boxes everywhere, and the election officials were yelling at them and stuff.
Yeah, but then that messes it up too, because you have drop boxes everywhere, and then you have manipulation everywhere, and then they can accuse the other person. And I remember during the primary in Wisconsin, there were tubs of uncounted ballots found in Wisconsin. That tubs and tubs, like this is nothing new. This happened before the general election. This happened when Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden were head to head.
Yep. But the reason, and I wrote my next paragraph right here, Johnny, the argument. The reason why the Republicans did it, and this is why, the argument is that drop boxes placed throughout a district, especially poor urban areas, increase participation, promote inclusivity, and strengthen accessibility. However, the majority of these drop boxes are not guarded by people or security cameras, and therefore break the chain of custody. Also, another big issue with drop boxes is the placement. In Wisconsin, and I should also put in Pennsylvania, was another area where they had lawsuits about this. Drop boxes were heavily placed in democratically controlled areas while almost non-existent in Republican areas. That is a form of voter suppression politically.
Right.
Politically doing that, fam. And that's a big no-no. That's against the federal standard guidelines about the equal protection laws for people voting.
As much as you hate Republicans and as much as you think, Trump was an idiot and, I hate Mitch McConnell and all of that, the moment you do that, you give the ability for the other side to eventually do it to you next time.
And I wish we could have verified that on the ground, because, we're taking the words of people's testimonies. It was multiple people's testimonies in those lawsuits and those court battles, and also when they were complaining to the state legislature, right?
Yep.
When there was a public hearing to the state legislature.
Yep.
So that's something that maybe there's a map out there that we can find, but that's something I would like to be on the ground.
I think the Amistad Project has it, Johnny, and I will try to email them and stuff. I've tried to email Phil Klein. We've talked about certain groups beforehand that were out there regarding what was going on. One of them was the Amistad Project, and the guy who runs, the head of the Amistad Project, his name is Phil Klein. Now, I told you I watched all these hearings, which a lot of people were like, oh my God, you watched all these hearings? I know a lot of Trumpers and Republicans who watch these hearings, and that's why a big reason why this article is written. Because within these hearings, there were moments of gold explanations about what's going on. They always had their moments of bringing their politics in there to it, whatnot, and it was created by, I mean, just the other day when I was watching the stuff from Arizona, one guy says, well, we know these programs came from Venezuela. It's like, no, this shit was around before that. Let's keep the political ideologies out of this. This is why it's very valuable for me to talk, and Fiorella and Jonny to talk to people on the other side who understand the laws of what's going on, but making sure that we keep the politics out of this, because we need a united front to fight this problem.
It's
now
not voter fraud; it's election fraud.
It's election
That's
fraud.
A lot of people
and when
get
they
wrong.
do that, it turns off so many people that would obviously on the left, that would obviously, but you need that credibility, so you know it's not just one-sided. Oh, Republicans doing this, because when you say shit like China and Venezuela, like you lose. Like I roll my eyes, because it's like, no. Like, this is our own government doing it.
Within arm's length?
Okay, it's just like they said it was Russia. It wasn't fucking Russia. Okay, like this is what we do. Take fucking responsibility, America, for how shitty your elections are. You don't need a foreign agent to make them shittier. You make them shittier.
Yeah, and I remember when we were in Washington, D.C., and I'm going to say this right now. Every Republican that I've told, or leadership Republicans who's in this work, I said, could you do me a favor? Can you get people to say election fraud, not voter fraud? Because we don't want to put the emphasis on the voter and punish the voter in a form of like pitting against each other once again, the person. Say it's the body. When you say election fraud, it's an entity that's doing the cheating. The establishment, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, whatever. It's election fraud. It's bigger. And every single time I tell a Republican, you watch that video, we had the action for Assange, they're like, okay, yeah. Whenever I told anybody who's working, they're like, you're right. Absolutely. 100%. And they get away from that.
Because nobody they're listening to makes that connection, Pastor.
Right.
On the right. You know, they go with their narrative.
Well, then, got Giuliani saying shit like
you got
illegal immigrants are voting, and that's a big problem. I can tell you this right now. We work in California, right? So we worked in the restaurant business back in the days. We know plenty of people who are illegals. They don't vote. They're afraid to get them. They're afraid to, put themselves
especially
out
with
there.
ICE.
Migrant workers.
Yes. But right now, Phil Klein, and like I said, out of all the speeches I've heard some great stuff that went on in the Michigan hearings that were just amazing. Pennsylvania, when it came to the computer, and some amazing, amazing emissions and stuff. In Wisconsin, this was one of my favorite hearings. They brought him on, Phil Klein from the Amistad Project, from the Thomas More Society, which is a libertarian group in Wisconsin, Chicago. It's in Chicago area, I believe they're out of. But they brought him on, and he talks about two things important. I encourage you, go back, watch this hearing, watch Phil Klein talk, because his speech is amazing. He also talks about the Zuckerberg money that I didn't include, that we'll get to later. But watch what he says about the chain of custody. Then we'll stop and talk about it real quick, and then watch what he says about the placement in which they found that map that you're looking for, Jonny. He might have it, what it was in Pennsylvania, and he explains to you the discrepancy. So here, the chain of custody, watch this.
Through that, your cities prepared this election plan. Within that plan, they established the provision of drop boxes. Now, it's mighty interesting in that the chain of custody of the ballot is one of the prime considerations in any state law or regulation that ensures the protection and accuracy of the vote. You must maintain a chain of custody of the ballot. If you look at every one of your laws, you will see that focus as vitally important in the application of that law. Yet where is your chain of custody on the millions of ballots that were placed in drop boxes? Where is the video? Where are the logs that show who picked them up and where they took them and what time they were picked up and what time they arrived? To act consistent with your laws, they should have had a 2-person per key system, such that Jonny, who may be a young Republican, wouldn't pick up ballots in a Democrat precinct and accidentally lose several on the way to these consolidated counting centers. Or if Billy, who might be an activist with Black Lives Matters, picks up ballots in a predominantly Republican area and might accidentally lose some on the way to the polling places. Where is your chain of custody? It was promised to you. It was mandated. In any of these states where Mr. Zuckerberg's monies arrived, they have not been provided.
There you go.
By Georgia.
Okay.
By
and he explained both sides, right? Okay.
Right.
This is why the chain of custody is so important, that we need to see these things, fam. And we've talked about how important it is to us, to the chain of custody. I think a lot of people out there sometimes don't realize that this chain of custody is probably one of the most important things in our elections whatsoever. It's to make sure that we have a secure elections, that these ballots aren't out of sight, that they're always secured and can't be tampered with and can't be messed with. Your thoughts on that, guys?
No, yeah, that's the thing.
That's
Amazon has a better chain of custody.
exactly.
Than
Amazon, Uber,
Thank
Postmates, all these people. You can literally, if I get in a lift, you can see where I'm at. Like Google can do that. Like they can do this. They track everything. They could track ballots if they wanted to.
Yeah.
They're not doing it because it's not convenient.
The placement. I know a lot of people think that these drop boxes are like a good thing because it's for accessibility, but the problem is that you have to make sure that they are placed fair and even throughout the state or the county who does so. And when you're using private money to do this, it makes it even more nefarious. Take a look what Mr. Klein has to say about the placement and how uneven it was.
Mr. Zuckerberg's money. Delaware County, Pennsylvania received substantial dollars. They established with his money one drop box for every 4 square miles. One drop box for every 4,000 voters. That's 2 miles by 2 miles square. That's a place to vote within walking distance of your home. This is all occurring, by the way, with many governors suspending and sidestepping state law regarding the number of in-person polling places required by law, consolidating those places, and reducing opportunities to vote in person. You can look at any polling throughout this election, and you will see that one party prefers to vote in person. One party prefers to vote absentee in advance. I will say this, that government putting its thumb on the scale to increase turnout of one demographic is the opposite side of the same coin as government putting its thumb on the scale to suppress one demographic from voting. It's the same thing. You can't treat persons or groups differently despite identity politics and cancel culture. Our rights are intrinsic, not offered by you. They're to be protected by you. And when government gets in the game through Mr. Zuckerberg's funds of treating groups of people differently, it violates a basic tenet of American law that we all should hold fast to as a protection of individual liberty. So in Delaware County, one drop box for every 4 square miles. In the 59 counties that President Trump won, one drop box for every 1,159 square miles. So in Pennsylvania, the state said, if you're in a Democrat area, we'll come pick up your ballot or walk to the corner. In the counties that Trump won, go on a weekend vacation and find Waldo.
All right. I mean, fam, that is voter suppression.
Right.
It is no way around it and stuff. That's why these privately funded entities coming in and putting drop boxes everywhere and people going, yeah, that's better. It's good. No, it's not. You have to do it fair. You could sneeze and hit a drop box in a Democratic area. But like I'm saying, you got to find where's Waldo in a Republican area.
Right.
And that just is an unfair advantage, whether you like the Republicans or not, whether you think they have a better chance to go vote, whether they don't have easier lines, or they have more accessibilities. You can't put something in that tips the scale because, once again, when there's a ton of ballots out there as well, anybody can put anything in these drop boxes anywhere.
Yeah.
They're not watched.
It's
They're not
tipping the
secured.
scale in favor of somebody is the same thing as suppressing the scale against somebody else. He's absolutely right. You can't pick and choose when morality kicks in just because you feel like, oh, well, you know, working people need more accessibility. They do. Then just give that same accessibility to everybody else. But that's for me, the biggest problem is the chain of custody, that there's no tracking
whatsoever
to whatever happens.
Yeah. Somebody can walk into a ballot box and put up thousands of ballots that they harvested. You know what I'm saying? And if you're wondering, well, how are they going to get the hold of those ballots, possibly like that? Well, just think about it this way. And let's wait 1 second. Let's talk about the scrutiny of signatures on ballots, because that's something we talked about. I've referenced this article again. This is the third part, which made us say, wait a second, they're going to cheat this shit through absentee ballots in the mail. Why? Because the fact check that the HEROES Act would eliminate state requirements for voter IDs in federal elections. And I don't want to go deep into this right now because we talked about this. Within 32 states, they tried to change the laws, especially when it came to absentee ballots. In other words, if you can get a ballot through that doesn't have the proper signature, that it just has a scribble, and it's coming from an entity that's on our side, that's a good thing, right? So Periscript, right? We did the whole video with Whitney Webb, and I just put up the link right there so you can look, because what they did was they shut out a lot of people from going in there to verify the ballots. Remember, we heard the whole thing. All the Republicans, I was there as a poll watcher. I was kicked out. That's breaking election laws. They did that all over. We saw that. So the ballots that came in right there that had to be verified by both Republicans and Democrats, they were only verified by one side. That's wrong. But also what they did in California, and they did in a lot of other countries, other counties, especially in the Las Vegas, Nevada county, is that they use these machines. Clark County, by this company called Periscript. And they actually put it through the machine. We have footage of this. Johnny and I went, and they put it through the machine, and the machine verifies the signature. Now, if you turn down the level on that thing for as far as being scrutiny, high on the scrutiny meter, and you put it down low, you can get almost a scribble through. And we've seen this before. Look at this machine right here. They put it through a machine. This is not verifying a signature. If it spits it out, they take it over to another part and they verify it. So about 99% of the signatures that were verified in a lot of these counties across the U.S. were verified by this Periscript machine, okay, and other machines. And Whitney Webb does a video for us. Go look it up. All the ties there, fam, to the people in this company are tied to who? The establishment in the Democratic Party. Some Republicans, too. Establishment Republicans, fam.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't seen this video, it's really telling. Whitney goes, we talk about her article where she went into Periscript and outlined just how much money these people have donated to certain candidates, not just Joe Biden, but other establishment Democratic candidates. And then you go into, big tech and how much they donated to. And the signature verification thing, like when they do an audit, or when they do some, we got to verify the signatures. If they're putting it through a machine that has the lower standard where anything gets through, then you're not verifying anything. Yeah. It's just for show. So it's important to note that.
It's funny because Robert Barnes and Mike Tracy had a debate about this whole situation, and they said something they kind of glossed over. I think Robert Barnes missed this one, and Tracy kind of made a comment, says, well, now that we have a lot of people voting by mail this time, the signature verification process would go down. No, that's not true. The number one reason a ballot gets rejected is because it's a first-time user who doesn't know how to use a mail-in ballot, right? Because they don't have nobody to help them out. So the first-time users of mail-in ballots, that's your highest rejection rate. Now you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of new voters voting by mail. That rejection rate would go up. And all 6 of these counties, 6 of these states, and these counties in these specific states, the areas under questioning, the signature verifications dropped. Why? Because they weren't scrutinized by Republicans and Democrats when the Republicans kicked them out of the room, or they used these machines, and they passed laws so they can use these machines to get these ballots through and get them passed through with nothing but a scribble. That is how they gamed the system, and that's how we knew they were going to do it through absentee ballots. We already knew the computer thing, right? So we know like Dominion and ES&S and Hart and Smartmatic. It's not necessarily the owners of these companies, even though they don't want to tell us who really owns these companies. Right. It's the people holding the keys. And if it's proprietary software, we'll never be able to see what they're doing.
We can't give a smoking gun when it's proprietary software.
Exactly.
Because no one is going to take it to the Supreme Court like Raji's doing right now.
No, nobody's got it.
The judge, ended the trial, so he's going to go to appeals.
Yeah. And what they did was they pretty much money. They went against the law. The judge ignored the law.
Yeah. No. Yep. The whole point of the law is to prevent election fraud from happening.
Yes.
Don't count early, because then there's a high chance that somebody who's a corrupted individual will go and change votes because the votes are stored internally in the county.
Yep.
Right?
Oh yeah.
And then Raji would get the fucking smoking gun if he was allowed to inspect the logs.
We would all get smoking guns.
But the Judge Lori Earl,
whatever her name
Lori
is,
H. Earl, did not give Raji the inspection. And that's why he's go into the appeals.
All right. So, Johnny, I don't know if I did this good enough. I tried to make this fit in one spot because I want to talk about we had the scrutiny, the shotgun of ballots, too, as well. This is something you guys should know, probably. They shotgunned a lot of ballots out in all the states. There are lawsuits going all over the place. In this particular situation, I think I mentioned Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania was the area that it got more attention than anywhere. In other words, to change an election law, whether it be a pandemic or not, you have to go through both parties and the state legislation.
Right. They
didn't do that. There's a lawsuit right now in California that they didn't do it properly. Pennsylvania has lawsuits. Michigan has lawsuits. Georgia has lawsuits that they did this unconstitutionally. In other words, they said that they can just, everybody who's on the voter rolls,
right,
send them all ballots.
Right.
Now, you have to think right here, fam. If they send out, let's just say 10 million ballots and 8 million get to where they got to, where do those other 2 million ballots go? Could they end up in the hands of nefarious, sinister characters? Yes, bad actors. Because they go back to either the place where they were mailed out from, and with ballot harvesting, I can just give them to you and say, hey, fam, go fill these out any way you want, and then go turn them in.
Well, and I was pissed because I got vote by mail from, and I didn't apply to do that.
In the primary.
For the primary. And
for the general, they changed the law so they could send it out to everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
they did that in the general.
They started doing that
for COVID reasons.
No, but they started doing that in California without you wanting to do, without you choosing to do it.
Yeah, for the primary.
So it was.
That was a Gavin Newsom thing.
No, they did it for the general too, because I wasn't a vote by mail.
In the general, yeah.
In the general is the main point where they changed the laws too as well. In Florida, there were people who got mail-in ballots that never requested them, whatnot, and they don't have that law. They don't have the system in California where you can just say, "Hey, I got a vote in. We're going to cancel your vote and we'll let you vote in person." They don't do that. In Florida, in a lot of these counties, in a lot of these districts, they're like, "I'm sorry, sir, you can't vote today. We'll give you a provisional because you're down for vote by mail." And so many, that happened to so many people too in the general election that were like, I didn't request a vote by mail. They shotgunned them out everywhere. That is why I'm just going to kind of leave it on that. So I just want to give my analysis so we can get moving on there and stay on topic. And that is that. Now, fam, really quickly, I just want to go over, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to talk about the player and the organizations and a sprinkle of dark money is what I call this because, and here it is, throughout the article, several organizations are mentioned as part of the bipartisan coalition that saved democracy. These organizations have names that purposely dupe the public, like many NGOs that are just arms of America's intelligence apparatus, like the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, and it's anything but that. The same goes for the 2020 general election. If you look closer at these organizations, real purpose and funding, you'll see another scam. So in other words, throughout this article, they mention all these groups. This one guy, Michael Hodzager, whatever his name, they made him out to be the Captain America leading the charge, and he was part of the AFL-CIO. And the AFL-CIO, which is a labor union, and a lot of people think that just because it's labor, fam, it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. We understand the organizations of bad labors, and the AFL and the CIO's role to the election, we can see that they felt it was necessary to join with an unexpected ally like the Chamber of Congress to invest in the integrity of the election. And this may reaffirm a big labor's role among CEOs to reaffirm the Democratic Party political apparatus. So pretty much I just kind of put that up there and whatnot because all these groups join together. They're like unholy groups that join together. Like, why are you joining together and stuff? Like, what's going on?
And the American it's the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations.
Yeah, and it's the largest federation of unions in the United States, okay? A lot of shady shit, a lot of dark money. It's made up of 55 national and international unions, together representing more than 12 million active and retired workers. The relationship between big labor and CEOs of the nations have a long history of capital and labor being at odds, but both came together on Election Day to ensure Donald Trump lost.
Right.
So I just want to kind of gloss over that. Another group, the Voter Protection Program, okay? This in short, fam, and then when they say the bipartisan coalition, this was the Lincoln Project coalition of the Protect the Vote, okay? They had a lot of Republicans and a lot of Republicans who hated Donald Trump and a lot of money that hated Donald Trump. They were involved. People on the board like Tom Ridge, Christian Todd Whitman, the list goes on of Republicans that have an agenda to unseat Trump. They're on the board of this group right here, the Voter Protection Program. And almost $8.8 million funding by large PACs, More than half of the 5.7 million coming from large wealthy donors. 5,000 came from an executive from BlackRock. You know what I'm saying? So you can see all this money coming in these groups, and they constantly talk about, oh, these groups are great, and open secrets. They have all the receipts. So along the whole time in this article, fam, they're talking about all these groups. Once again, how does it sound? The voter protection group.
Right. It sounds like this is a good thing. We need people to protect our votes. We need people to, look at all these institutions that are there, and there's some conservatives there, so they're going to be fair. No, that's not how it works. Yeah. It's the establishment, and the Lincoln Project are the last people you want to trust. And so what they did was they formulated look, it's a bunch of unions, it's a bunch of workers, it's a bunch of people, and they're protecting our elections, and they frame it that way. So the left, sectors of the left and the progressives who are easily manipulated through their emotions go, oh, well, this is fine. This is fair. Look at all these people. They said Donald Trump is full of shit. They said this election was fair. Look, they were protecting our elections. Mm-hmm. But you don't really get to know the depth of exactly what was going on behind the scenes as to what they're calling protecting our elections.
That Washington Post article, Johnny, right there, I believe I put it up there. One of those, I want to click into the article. No, not that one. If you go down a little bit. No. That one right there. Okay. That's the one right there. All right. And you can just see the list of the people that were involved in this right now. Governors Tom Ridge, William Weld, Kristen Todd Whitman, John Kasich, Dick Schneider, Michael Steele. You know what I'm saying? All of these people from the Lincoln Project backed all these groups. You have people like Cindy McCain, Carla Fiona, Meg Whitman, and this was their election integrity group that played a big part in making sure that these election laws were strong. Things happen. This is the group of people that you are standing behind. Whatnot. The next group, the Fight Back Table. It seems like a good intentioned organization, but it's not outright connected to the Democratic Party ideologically and the power apparatus. But a quick look is mostly led by Democrats who have questionable tie to the party apparatus and questionable funding sources. So in other words, it seems like a good one, but you look deeper into it. Once again, you'll see Democratic Party members, that are attached to these groups, doing work, with some connections to the Center for American Progress. So it's another thing we have to look at too as well.
Slow down.
I'm sorry. Well, I didn't want to.
I know, but you want to go thoroughly through this, right?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So you said you didn't. Did you mention Demos? Because this is the...
No.
Okay, so the Fight Back Table is the coalition led by the liberal think tank Demos, which had 70 different progressives and moderate organizations. And so you have to note that they're going to put, oh, this is progressives, oh, these are moderates, oh, this is across the board. But note that it is people who had every sort of benefit into supporting the Democratic establishment. And by doing this, by having all these people, that is effectually, you're creating this cabal of people. You're creating the shadow campaign that has more power that they shouldn't have in influencing our elections, which is why what he's going over is so important.
Yeah, thank you for slowing me down too as well. I didn't realize the importance of talking about some of this stuff.
Yeah, we skipped a couple articles.
Yeah.
This Vice one says Democrats are using a shady voting rights group to smear an AOC-backed progressive in Texas.
Okay. Gotcha.
Jessica Cisneros is running for Congress. Oh, I remember Cisneros. Wasn't she running against Sima Hernandez?
No. This is somebody completely different.
The voting rights group is trying to stop her. So the voting rights group was. Do you know which one it was?
That voting rights group was the
Voter Protection Project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The Voter Protection Program.
The group that paid for it's called is called the Voter Protection Project. It looks like they paid for something. Yeah. They paid for something. But anyways, if you look at their page, the Voter Protection Program, here's their advisory board. So Tom Ridge, Governor of Pennsylvania, Assistant to George Bush, Bill Weld, Governor of Massachusetts.
I love Christine Todd Whitman. Former governor of New Jersey.
Jack Conway.
And these were all people that were part of that.
So then this voter protection program, they're using it in the Times article, right?
Yeah. All these groups are mentioned in the Times article.
And the Times article said that this group of a lot of Republicans and everything wanted Biden to ensure that Biden would win. Basically,
Correct.
That's literally what it says
Absolutely.
in the Times article.
Right.
Yeah, I think in fact the first part of the article we read talked about the voter protection program, but they're mentioned several times throughout this article. They are one of the groups that are mentioned that did a lot of work working along this coalition of people to make sure that Biden secured the election. But you can see the players behind and the money they take. So Johnny put up the open secrets, so we saw that. Okay, so where were we at right now?
Private philanthropy.
I can't even say that word.
Private philanthropy stepped into the breach. An assortment of foundations contributed tens of millions in election administration funding. The Chan Zuckerberg initiative chipped in $300 million. It was a failure at the federal level.
That's down the way.
That 2,500 local election officials were forced to apply for philanthropic grants to fill their needs.
Yeah.
This was from Amber McReynolds. She was a former Denver election official who heads the nonpartisan National Vote at Home Institute.
Yeah, he has that up down the road. We're going to get into that because that was also some of the private money that was included and stuff. I'm so sorry for rushing everybody. I'm trying to. I know the thing is big, but we should probably slow down. I rush back. Let's talk about the fight back table. We talked about that one, right? And Demos and how it was involved, because I think we were right there. I also want to point out that Demos' founding board member was Obama and was founded to counter the rise of right-wing think tanks by moderate and progressive liberals. Demos has seemed to have sided more with moderates after 2016 when they fired blogger Matt Bruegge after he called the Center for American Progress's president, Neera Tanden, a scumbag.
Yeah, so Max Blumenthal, if you were here yesterday, was just talking about that. This is why Bernie, like approving Neera Tanden and confirming Neera Tanden would be a complete, it's just a slap in the face. It's a stab in the back. And this is how dangerous Neera Tanden is. This is what these people do. This is the cabal they are part of. You're not going to tell me that these people were nonpartisan and biased and just wanted democracy to win when they have all these vested interests into the Democratic establishment.
Yeah. Yes. So the Fight Back Table, an initiative launched after the 2016 election to get a constellation of lefty organizations to work more closely together. The meeting dealt with the operational demands of if the November election ends without a clear outcome or with a Joe Biden win that Donald Trump refuses to recognize. And that was from the Daily Beast.
So they already had an institution set there in case that Trump was going to fight this, which he ended up doing.
Yeah. And by the way, right below that sentence right below it, Demos has refused to make public its donors and has been classified as a dark money group by the Center for Public Integrity. In 2014, the organization's tax forms showed that it attained about $7 million of funds, half of which came from only 7 contributors that range between $250,000 to $1.425 million. In the same year, $3 million was given towards salaries and wages, including then President Heather McGhee's salary of $240,000. So you can see the dark money that's working behind the scenes that really curtailed the 2020 election.
Fam,
right?
$7 million of funds, half of which came only from 7 contributors. So that's
$1 million each.
That's crazy. Well, no, half of which. So 3.5.
3.5.
So half a million each, an average.
Yeah.
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 That's crazy.
Yeah. And it gets funneled down to certain pockets. Listen, they were classified as a dark money group. That's one of the main groups that were working in this article. And they put this in your face. They tell you this shit.
Yeah, but people don't look it up. People don't know. This is why they get away with it.
Yeah. And really the next one, the Democracy Defense Coalition, which is also mentioned throughout this article. The Democracy Defense Coalition is a coalition of the Fight Back Table Coalition. There isn't much to understand about this organization besides it should be a joke, as they are a coalition of a coalition.
So it's a coalition of resistance organizations that began planning the scenario for a contested election, because I knew that doing all of this, somebody is going to contest it, maybe not Sanders, but Donald Trump, and that they were going to do that. And they gathered these liberal activists at the local and national level, and they called that the Democracy Defense Coalition. So
I think it's important to state that after it went through, they knew there was going to be contesting, right? So what they did was they armed their friends in their states or their counties how to fight back, how to deny audits, how to get them shut down, how to keep all their information sealed and not looked over. That was a big part of this election. It wasn't just, and they tell you about this in this cabal, they didn't want to just get the results they want and say, hey, we got it. They knew there was going to be pushback, there was going to be malarkey going on, and that people wanted answers and stuff. They were there to make sure that you didn't look behind the curtain.
Right.
They were the security guards right there. Okay, so the next one was Protect Democracy. This organization has done some credible work with legal challenges, but are also in part connected to organizations such as Third Way. This is a liberal litigation organization that has fought for various legal challenges to enfranchise voters for the U.S. They have been behind several liberal initiatives to reinforcing voting, such as constitutional court cases, fighting to strengthen the post office, petition for the resignation of Attorney General William Barr, fighting for voters registration databases. These projects seemed as if they are valid and within the reasonable limits of a small nonprofit. In 2018, Protect Democracy filed another lawsuit on behalf of PEN America, a journalist organization, arguing that Trump was violating the First Amendment by revoking press credentials to punish journalists and threatening media businesses' bottom line, stalling proposed merger of CNN's parent company, raising postal rates on Amazon, whose founder Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, and threatening to revoke broadcast licenses. In March, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, the suit could go forward, and that was in Time magazine. Protect Democracy has received $100,000 in general operating support grants from the left-wing Hewlett Foundation in 2018. This grant was made through Hewlett's Madison's Initiative, a fund for strengthening U.S. democracy and institution and the time of political polarization. Other Madison Initiative grants receipts include the Third Way Institute, Pew Charitable Trust, the Brennan Center for Justice, which is just a messed up group, and the Bipartisan Policy Center.
Third Way, too.
Yeah. According to the 2017 IRS filings from Form 990, United to Protect Democracy and Protect Democracy Project, not related organizations, as the term is defined from the IRS, from the glossary. However, the organizations have cost-sharing agreements in which Project Democracy Project pays United... I'm sorry, did I say it? The Protect Democracy Project pays United to Protect Democracy for its...
allocable share of personnel, equipment, facilities, and other resources.
Here it is. In 2017, Protect Democracy's project gross revenues were $2.66 million. Its expenditures were $1.2 million, and its net assets were $3.2 million. Protect Democracy Project and United to Protect Democracy list dozens of advertisers to organizations. Notable advertisers include Notable advisors include Jerry Taylor, president of the nominally libertarian think tank Nickerson Center, failed 26 presidential candidate and stand-up Republican co-founder Evan McCullen, failed 26 presidential vice president candidate and stand-up Republican co-founder Mindy Finn, and Defending Democracy Together directors Mona Charen and Linda Chavez.
So, effectively, what does this mean? Can you summarize that?
The whole thing is that the group has done some good work, but then it also has questionable ties to who they're working from, and more importantly, the money. Where's the money coming in from? Where did they get that money from? Where did they get assets of $3.2 million? So on the surface, they might seem like they're doing good things, but they got dark money coming in at all angles, and some of the people they're tied to are very hardcore establishment people like Linda Chavez and Mona Charen. So it is a questionable group. The other one is the Leadership Council of Civil and Human Rights. This group seems to have played a small role in the election. This is an umbrella group of almost 200 different members of civil rights organizations and nonprofits, part of the nonprofits industrial complex, who are also part of the liberal status quo. So once again, this is a group that's coming in to protect the status quo, to help establishment characters. This organization took up the challenges to strengthen the integrity of the election because they believe it was a civil rights issue. Considering it was people of color who have been the most disenfranchised, it seems this organization played a nominal role in the Democratic Party's newest cottage industry to raise funds of the fear of the election being rigged. So this group came in to say, oh, Donald Trump's going to try to steal the election. Donald Trump's going to try to steal the election. And that's how they raised funds and got people to believe that the orange man bad was the boogeyman trying to steal the election.
Which, I mean, people of color are disenfranchised. I don't think we're apt to say that that's not the case.
Yeah.
That happens all the time, especially in, the Midwest, the South. The way the new Jim Crow and all these laws, like all of that is entirely true. Nobody is denying that, but they weaponize that to manipulate this.
And the national vote, and really quick before I go on that one, that's the whole thing. They use that to manufacture consent for stuff like drop boxes in these areas and whatnot. And you might think it's okay in the beginning and say, oh, what they're doing is really kind of admirable. They're making sure that people of color have more rights and ways to vote. The Latino vote, they can get more people to vote that way. But once again, we showed you how unfair it could be if you just do for one group and not for another. You can't do it for Democrats and not do it for Republicans. You have to do it even keel across the board for libertarians, for green parties, which means if you put out drop boxes, they have to be evenly placed and they have to be guarded with the chain of custody with either a security camera or people.
So the whole point we're doing and talking about these are all the groups that the Time magazine mentioned, and we're just exposing how all the money ties, the fact that they're liberals and conservatives, and it's a whole establishment cabal, to use the Time magazine's own word.
Absolutely. So all these groups are mentioned in the Time magazine. If you read through it, you'll see all these groups. They'll talk about this person from this group, this person from that group. All these groups, fam, I didn't even know about these groups or hear about the names of these groups. Yeah. I was like, wait, this is not an election integrity group. Who's this group over
Just
here?
like the Epstein groups, Maple Inc. or whatever, right?
You don't know about these
Maple
groups.
Corporation.
And they mention all these groups so you know who's working against you, pretty much the establishment and the establishment lackeys.
Well, there's a lot of public information out there. It takes a lot of digging.
Yep.
So this is the last group, and then there's Zuckerberg, right?
Yes, this is the last group, and then Zuckerberg. Sorry for hurrying along because I know it's a long show. Thank you for hanging in with us, everybody there. I hope you go over to Rokfin and sign up. The National Vote at Home Institute. This is rather an impotent group and another redundant organization, part of the nonprofit industrial complex. I love that word, the nonprofit industrial complex. A social good arm of the Democratic Party, funded by the same people who funded the Center for American Progress and Demos, fam.
Right.
You want to read that there?
This seems as if it's another organization doing the exact same thing as several other organizations who want to make sure every vote counts. This organization seems to be focused more on research and policy changes, legal challenges, or any kind of direct action. They create a ballot return tool, educate voters on the importance of home voting, a 2020 presidential election primary app, have interactive maps, and various other resources, but seem to have little to no influence on the outcome of the election or a relationship to the Democratic Party apparatus. This is another organization, part of the Democratic Alliance, who funded Center for American Progress and Demos. But if they have that relationship, then yes, they are.
Right. And these are notes that our researcher made, and that's why we're reading this off.
Let's get into the Mark Zuckerberg sprinkles a little dark money in here, fam.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let you read that because I can't say that second word.
So private philanthropy stepped into the breach. An assortment of foundations contributed tens of millions in election administration funding. The Chan Zuckerberg initiative chipped in $300 million. It was a failure at the federal level that 2,500 local election officials were forced to apply for philanthropic grants to fill their needs. And this was the former Denver election official who heads the nonpartisan National Vote at Home Institute who said this. Mike Reynolds' 2-year-old organization became a clearinghouse for a nation struggling to adapt. The institute gave secretaries of state from both parties technical advice on everything from which vendors to use to how to locate drop boxes. Local officials are the most trusted sources of election information, but few can afford a press secretary, so that the Institute distributed communication toolkits. This is a reoccurring problem. In a presentation to Podhorser's group, McReynolds detailed the importance of absentee ballots for shortening lines at polling places and preventing an election crisis.
Hey, that's right from the magazine, right from the article, guys.
Hey, fam, in the largest county in America, they can afford a press secretary, but he's pretty fucking not helpful at all.
Yeah, no, they don't call you back.
The emails take forever, and they don't email back, and you can ask questions about anything, basically anything of substantial value. So,
and the dark money coming in from a private organization, and we talked about it. They did it so this is how you place these drop boxes. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got to strengthen mail-in voters and we said this before, fam. Our work, what we did in the primary, the suppression, the long lines, they kind of manufactured consent and say, oh yeah, I'd rather do it by mail now because I don't want to wait 3 hours and stuff.
Right.
They break the system and then they present you their solution, which allows them to cheat. The last one right here.
The Institute's work helped 37 states and D.C. bolster mail voting, but it wouldn't be worth much if people didn't take advantage. Part of the challenge was logistical. Each state has different rules for when and how ballots should be requested and returned. The Voter Participation Center, which in a normal year would have deployed canvassers door to door to get out the vote, instead conducted focus groups in April and May to find out what would get people to vote by mail. In August and September, it sent ballot applications to 15 million people in key states, 4.6 million of whom returned them. In mailing and digital ads, the group urged people not to wait for election day. All the work we have done for 17 years was built for this moment of bringing democracy to people's doorsteps. And Tom Lopak, the center CEO, said that.
Okay, so once again, their plan was in place. And man, did they kind of apply it. And the people involved, we saw the money lines to these groups, fam. Mm-hmm. They're tied to people with the same money and organizations of Center for American Progress, Demos, all these Lincoln Project guys were involved. This was the group of cabal people, and it's this whole, we did it in secret to protect the democracy.
Right.
And these are the groups. I'm going to read this last one right over here because this is the last paragraph we have, and I'm just going to really quickly band some stuff together. Quinn's research gave ammunition to advocates pushing social media platforms to take a harder line, because this is the part we're going to talk about. What's the word I'm looking for? Censorship, right? How they also got their word out there, the Hunter Biden story. How do we make a harder line so we put this stuff down where we can control the narrative throughout social media? Meanwhile, they're saying they're doing it to stop violence and all this other bullshit. They're doing it to game the own system. In November 2019, Mark Zuckerberg invited 9 civil rights leaders to dinner at his home, where they warned him about the danger of the election-related falsehoods that were already being spreaded and unchecked. So in other words, anybody out there who is saying, guys, take a look at this, they're trying to change this law and stuff, they're saying we have to stop that kind of verbiage out there. We can't let that rhetoric get out there. We have to control the narrative, and people are telling the truth about what's going on, and these people got together to tell Zuckerberg, hey, we need you to stop this. It took pushing, urging, conversations, brainstorming, and all of that to get to the place where we ended up with more rigorous rules and enforcement, says Vanita Gupta, president and CEO of the Leadership Conference of Civil and Human Rights, who attended the dinner and almost met with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and others. Gupta has been nominated for the Associate Attorney General by President Biden. I can't believe they even put that in there to let you know. It was a struggle, but we got to a point where they understood the problem. Was it enough? Probably not. Was it later than we wanted to? Yeah, but it was really important given the level of official disinformation that they had those rules in place where tagging things and taking them down. And that's exposing Vanita Gupta. She has been nominated. This is the person right there. Biden announces he will nominate Lisa Monaco and Vanita Gupta for top Justice Department post. This is the person that was going in and pressuring them. You have to put up labels. You know, all those labels that said the election has been decided by the AP and stuff, and all those things. This was the person, and now she was working for Joe Biden. So that is a direct line of censorship of the election to the Biden administration. A direct line. And I just put over the gang is all together, Johnny, that dinner that's there. I don't know if you can get it up there, but you can see there's the table right there. You got Obama there. You got Eric Schmidt. You got Vanita's over there. You got all these people, all these big players. At the very end is Eric Schmidt. You can see Obama. He's next to Zuckerberg. They're all there. They're all there.
There's big tech with the Democratic establishment pretty much merging with all these dark money groups. And, of course, those people from the Lincoln Project, the Center for American Progress. If you're going to tell me that that's democracy, those people are saving democracy, that they saved democracy. I don't know how you have, there's no saving you, because these people are diametrically opposed to everything the real progressives and the real, people who want to change the system, who want to help people want. They literally are funded by this system. They reap the benefits of that. It is an elite cabal. It is an elite group of people who are dominating the narrative. And now that Joe Biden has won, now they've even upped the ante when it comes to censorship and crackdown, because they don't want people to question the elections ever again. And that's why you're seeing the push via legislation using the threat of white supremacy and domestic terrorism to pretty much shut down any dissent, especially regarding the election.
Yeah. So, fam, the third part, and this is not the long part, because this is just the wrap it up, and let's talk about this, because why did they write this article, and what do we have to do moving forward? I mean, they pretty much said that they rigged the election here.
Yeah,
they showed you the groups
did.
that were there. They tipped the scales. They didn't tell you the
specifics.
laws, the specifics that we can tell you about. And the reason why you can't just really necessarily prove fraud unless you get an auditing process.
Gun.
You can't get a smoking gun because the auditing process to let's check their homework has never been done. And like I said, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But if we saw all this stuff unfolding beforehand, why would they write this election? Why would they write this article now? I wrote something about it, but do you want to say anything before I go into it about why you think they wrote this article?
Well, I think they wrote this article to tie it in a nice little bow and present it to the American people. See, we're being honest here. We're letting you know what happened and what it took to really it took the ends justifying the means, right? It took all of these people coming together and making sure that Donald Trump was not president of the United States, but they're painting it as we saved you from stupidity because they think you, the masses, are stupid.
Yep.
And they think you are out to get them now because they've been treating you like shit. They haven't given you anything. So they sensed that something was arising. And the populist right movement that, you know, kind of got its feathers from Trump, like those people, like they could easily be vilified because what easier target than the white supremacist domestic terrorists? Like they are a problem. I mean, it's been an issue. You know, this country, everybody knows that there are racist people. So what they do is they weaponize that fear in a lot of the liberal left. And what do? They bring in the progressives by saying, look at these Nazis. Do you want to side with those people? And so what they do is they tie it in a little bow and say, look, this is what we did to protect you because you're too stupid to protect yourself. And we needed to do this to stop Orange Man Bad. And we didn't care how we did it. And we're not going to tell you the specifics of how we fucking did it. But we did it, and you should be happy. You should be thanking us. You should be proud of us.
Yeah.
And you should never question that this was not for anything else other than for your own fucking good because you're a fucking moron. And that's really what they want to say. And because you know what? We're scared that you guys are knowing too much and we don't want you to come after us. So just focus on the fact that Orange Man bad.
Yeah.
Republicans bad. Nazis bad, like all these things. So that way you don't look at them and actually read this and say, God, these are fucking psychopaths that did this.
Yeah, it was a giant deep fake out there. And,
Yep.
you know, even in the article, they said, you know, Donald Trump was partially right about the elections being fraud. But this is what I wrote, fam. And I very much kind of also going on what you're saying, they do think you're dumb. They do think you're stupid. But they also wrote this article because they're scared. They wrote this to get ahead of the narrative because they know that half the country doesn't believe that our elections are fair, and they are educating themselves on the election process. This propaganda piece might justify the past election to some on the left who choose to have their heads to remain in the clouds. That's sad because we are looking at the election results, and many people are feeling great about themselves because they saved democracy. But behind that feeling, there should be the realization that this election strengthened the political power of the elites, the status quo, and that kind of democracy saved by these organizations does not mean democracy for all. Sorry for stumbling on the last piece. So now it's evident on what we must do, and I'm going to say it. This is the next paragraph, John. So now it's evident on what we must do, and I'm going to say it. We must fight like hell to save our democracy. And that doesn't require us storming the Capitol or burning down buildings or raiding big corporate stores. It requires all of us to become election integrity activists today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not election cycle, but today. We must learn and understand every aspect of our elections because if we fail to do so, the people will never gain power, and those in charge will continue to profit off our misery while they destroy the planet and rape Earth of its resources to hoard for themselves. Now is the time to fix our elections. And that's all I got, fam.
I encourage anyone to fucking just go to your own election office, wherever it is, wherever you are locally, whatever county you are in. look up whatever county you're in, election office on Google, and just show up next election. Show up a few days before to see what they're preparing. Show up on the day of. And, email us what you find. Because I guarantee you, you're going to find something that doesn't sit right with you when you leave that place.
Yep. 100%. I mean, you said it yourself. I mean, because so many people question the election, right? There's 75 million people that reportedly voted for Trump. I'm sure it was more. But there's 75 million people that voted for Trump. The vast majority of those people think the election was rigged. So you can either say they're all conspiracy theorists, they're all QAnon, they're all Nazis, they're all white. You can say all of those things. But that doesn't change the fact that that's millions of people that don't believe in this process. And you're giving them the impetus to not believe in this process. So the best thing you can fucking do is have transparency in your elections, no matter who you like or who, whatever. Because right now, progressives are fighting amongst themselves in third parties because the third parties aren't getting their shit together because they're too busy fighting each other instead of looking at who's really screwing them. And they're not paying attention to election integrity. The vast majority of the left scoffs when we talk about this stuff. They dismiss it as conspiracy theory. They dismiss it as bullshit, but we're literally telling you it does us no favor to actually do this shit because 1, it's wonky and it's boring for most people. 2, it's very technical. 3, it gets us a lot of hate. It gets us to be painted as some right wingers or whatever. But the reason we do it's because without a free press and with censorship and without a system to where you can actually feel that your vote counts and that you can actually vote better of representatives in, we have literally fascism. That is fascism. And as I said in my video the other day, fascism isn't going to come in a Klan suit. It's going to come in a nice suit with a pretty face, and it's going to be cryptic, and you're not noticing it as what they're doing, because the moment they can control who gets in there and manipulate the puppets that they do, because this is all just now puppetry, because when we get into it, the national security state is really behind who's president. The 3-letter agencies are really in control. That's not fucking conspiracy. That is a fact. And if you want to bury your head in the sand or bury your head up your ass, then that's fine. But we're going to continue talking about these things. There are reasons we're being shut down. There are reasons we're being censored. It is because we're informing people to wake the fuck up and know that this is not a partisan issue. This is a people's issue, a democratic issue, a democracy issue, a workers issue. This is what we have to do in order to get anything that we want.
Yeah, and if they justify stealing the elections from Donald Trump, they can justify stealing the elections from you. And I encourage some of your KDM members who kind of lost touch with us and whatnot and kind of shrugged us off, give us a call, because we can talk. Because this is what we have to get together to fix, because they're doing it on the lower levels too as well. Johnny, I'm sorry.
You said KDM. I meant KDEM, California Democrats.
Yeah.
And I also just want to tell everybody that Pasta and myself went last week to the Norwalk office to just request a viewing of the Tally Operations Center, just to see, because in the lawsuit the judge said that that respondents, Logan and the county, had to preserve all evidence.
Preserve it.
And I just got an email back from their lawyers. I'd been in email contact with Jeff Klein, and I just got an email back from their lawyers saying that basically we're not allowed to. So I just want to tell y'all.
That's what they do.
This is what happens.
That's what they do.
This is what happens.
Alex Padilla, before he left and became a senator, which is a joke, and the guy's getting sued left over right when it comes to election integrity groups, that real election integrity groups, he changed the rules, making it harder for you to receive data on polling books. You know what I'm saying? And that's what, a lot of people get fixated on, oh, they're removing people from the list. They're purging people of color. Like, no, it's not just people of color. Does that happen? Of course. But it's only one aspect, because if you keep those rolls dirty and you have a lot of people on them that might have moved or died, you now have access to extra ballots to stuff the machines with. And they do that to your local candidates. They do it all the way up to the president of the United States. And we've always pointed out every single step of the way. And I think we need some phone calls, fam. I don't know if we've gotten any phone calls. People saying, sorry, guys, you were right. And your passion for pushing this, you were right. Because this is right here, everything they're telling you right now. The only opinion piece is the fact is that they did it for truth and justice, and some of the people were Captain America or Batman if you're DC or Marvel, whichever leaders you want and stuff like that. That's the only opinion piece. The truth about it is that they rigged the election, and everything they show you right here is wrong. And that's only one part of what's going on, because the giant obfuscation is all these laws they changed it so those numbers that can come in the middle of the night, they made it possible. You have all these drop boxes, you have ballot harvesting, you got all these loose ballots out there. Of course you can stuff the ballot box. You can cluster it. And then you can change the numbers in certain parts and certain ends to get it close. This would have been a blowout. I hate to say it, by Donald Trump. And your fear of Donald Trump should not mean the ends justify the means, is what I said in those last 2 paragraphs right there and stuff like that. You shouldn't feel good about yourself just because the results came in the way you wanted to. It was wrong.
And I just got to say one last thing on the subject is that recalling back when Sanders supporters were justifiably upset when Obama, it was revealed that Obama and the cabal of establishment Democrats were doing the Stop Sanders movement, and they did everything in their power to stop him. Obama made phone calls. They had all the media attack again. They had all the players. They got, Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar to drop out. They put in Elizabeth Warren, stayed there even though nobody fucking wanted her. All these things that happen, all these manipulations with the media, with tech, with big tech, with platforms, etc. All of that. You were mad about that. If you were fucking mad about the Obama Stop Sanders movement, that was wrong. That was already election fraud. That was already interference in the election. They did it again. Yeah. They did it again. Yeah. They did it again.
And stop thinking Republican, Democrat. Think establishment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They're breaking bread. The Lincoln Project, they're breaking bread with Republicans. They're together. Joe Biden was closer to Lindsey McConnell. That's a good name, Lindsey McConnell. Was closer to...
Cindy McCain?
No. I'm talking about McConnell. What's his first
name?
Mitch
McConnell?
Lindsey
Graham?
No, Joe Biden is closer to Mitch McConnell than Trump was ever closer to Mitch McConnell. There's so many pictures. They're friends. Lindsey Graham talks about, I think Joe Biden, one of the nicest human beings in the face of the earth, and he's going to cry. And these people are closer. You know what I'm saying? And they were all in on it. This article explains a lot. They're trying to make these people who were happy with the results justify what was going on.
And I mean, you can think Trump knew about this. He didn't. That's irrelevant to me. The fact that it was done and the way it was done is wrong. Yeah. I don't put any trust in Trump, him being an anti-establishment. I don't think he was. I mean, he showed us who he was by not pardoning Julian Assange and by going off into the wilderness and not giving a shit about this, because he still should be fighting it, and he's not. So
I think he learned the hard way that he thought he would kiss some asses of some of those people in the military-industrial complex and kiss some asses inside the establishment. It wasn't enough kissing ass by Donald Trump, and he went out like a chump for not pardoning Julian Assange, because it really ties into this right over here. Our elections are our speech. It's our vote. It's the people's will. If you take away the people's will, you forget about it. And it was so disgusting what happened. But there it is, ladies and gentlemen. There's the article. We gave a little perspective of what was going on. And thank you for slowing me down, fam. At one point, I was trying to rush through the thing because I know it was taking so long. But you could see those groups and the money tied and who was working behind the scenes. And hopefully the Convo Couch has pointed out, what they're doing, they're gaming the system so they can cheat it. And they did. We don't even talk about the mathematical anomalies where in 6 states and these counties where Donald Trump was so far ahead that all of a sudden Joe Biden came into play. But that's all the laws that these people were changing to make it possible. They changed laws so they can have multiple ballots out there.
They put their players in place, the pawns in the positions, the knights, the bishops. They did everything right before in order to checkmate and win, and they knew what they were doing, and nobody else saw it. Very few people saw it coming. We did, but very few people.
What's that? No. We'll just go on after. They'll hang through. Fam.
I do got to do this next
section.
We
are going to do this section. We'll contact them after. I told them we needed some extra time. And by the way, talking of chess, I think it's time you make your move in chess, because I got you. I'm going to swing it. I'm coming off the ropes, fam, and I'm coming with a blow over here.
You really aren't,
so
Pasta.
Watch.
Pasta's about to die. He's about to lose, and he just doesn't want to admit it. Right, anyway, fam, so this one's going to go, by the way, really quickly.
2 hours almost.
AOC and Chuck Schumer, right? They're not going to give you healthcare for all. They won't even bring it to a floor vote. AOC and the squad won't bring it to a floor vote. You get impeachment, you get trauma stories, but you don't get Medicare for all. But what they will give you is after you fucking die or after your family dies, you may be reimbursed with $7,000. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you die, which might be a better alternative to some, with all the medical bills, all the student debt that you have, if you die, then, hey, at least you'll get more than the stimulus you got during life. Because if we add up everything you got with $1,200, $600, that's $1,800. We haven't gotten the other. You'll still be making out with so much more. So I don't know if we can figure out a way to like Tom Sawyer did when they faked their death. But Remezcla did this article, and it's crazy. And look at the picture. I mean, can Glory Jones meme this for me? Because this is just
who we need in that
perfect.
Picture, fam?
This is perfect to be memed right now.
On one side, I think we need Neera Tanden.
Oh, yeah.
Over the shoulder. Can we get Neera Tanden? Can somebody give me Neera Tanden in this? I want the purple in here. Go ahead, fam. I'm sorry. I just had to say that.
So AOC saw a need in her district early in the pandemic for families that lost loved ones due to COVID-19 and could not pay for funeral expenses, which is a problem, right? It absolutely is a problem. I'm not saying it's not. Those already hit hardest with poverty and economic anxiety on top of their grief had to figure out how to pay for unexpected funeral costs, including the storage costs because the pandemic killed so many people. Funeral homes are just as overcrowded as hospitals, and they are. Finally, the legislation she has been fighting for since May 2020 is seeing fruition as she and Senator Chuck Schumer unveiled funeral benefits for low-income families that have lost a loved one due to COVID-19. So it's just for low-income families. And then she said, it's official. If you've lost a loved one due to COVID-19, you will soon be able to get reimbursed up to $7,000. Notice that word, up to, for the expenses of laying a loved one to rest. Laying a loved one to rest is usually more than that, by the way. Yeah. Proud and thankful to have gotten this done with Senator Schumer, Voces Latinas, Queens, New York, Elm Corps, and Hispanic Fed. And this is her and that. And
should we play the video?
No. Families are having to pay for the storage of the bodies of their own loved ones. This is wrong. And of course, progressives, liberals, some of these people are going to look at this. Well, at least she's doing something. I mean, she cares about people. Look, guys. It's a fucking pandemic and they didn't give you health care. I don't know how to get that through your head. I do not know how to get that through your thick skull. What they're giving you now is crumbs for you to be like, oh, at least they gave us this as you're dying. As you're dying. You will make more money if you die now. If you're poor and you die, you're going to have more money. Your family's going to at least have $7,000 now. So again, we're in a state where I don't understand how Americans aren't in the streets right now in a general strike. Like, what is it going to take, America? This is to me, it's a mockery. I don't think some of these liberals and some of these neo-progressives get it. Like, this is a slap in the face. Why don't you give people fucking health care and debt forgiveness for their health during a fucking pandemic? When else is a better time to fight for it? And she refused to fight for force of vote. Exactly. She refused to do anything regarding that. And we're supposed to be okay for let's say your family dies tomorrow and you'll get $7,000 if it's COVID related. What if it's not COVID related? What if it's the fact that your aunt died because the hospitals had too many patients and the doctors weren't at their highest level of being able to produce and to actually take care of people, and then you had to get sent to another hospital, and on the way there it was too slow and your aunt died just because of result of negligence because the hospitals were too so that doesn't count. Like, I'm just saying,
suicide.
We just have suicide, depression,
what about
drugs,
what about those
opiates.
people who lost their health care because they lost their jobs during the pandemic? There's millions of people, fam, that lost that health care that we were trying to get them to fight for. They don't even have all those people lost their health care.
Insulin, because you couldn't pay for your kids' fucking insulin. People are crying online about insulin, and Joe Biden raises the price. Why aren't we talking about that? Why is it after the fact? It's retroactive what she's doing. It's not proactive. You have to be proactive. You don't want people to get sick? They should go to the fucking doctor. People don't go to the doctor, and then they go to the doctor the one time because it's gotten really bad, and it turns out they're dying of cancer. Why? Because, they don't go to their yearly checkups. Well, why? Because I don't have health care. That's a fucking problem. Or they refuse to go to the doctor because they don't want to pay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to go to the emergency room. That is fucking bullshit. So if you're going to tell me that what she did is a good thing, you can go fuck yourself, because people are dying and people don't deserve to be in debt, especially during a pandemic. If you're going to shut everything down and call it a goddamn pandemic, you don't throw crumbs like this in the face of Americans when you're the only major nation on earth that does not guarantee people health care.
And for the record, the reason why we put AOC in her position was to make sure to fight the Democrats in her party, to expose that. We already knew who the Republicans were. We put her there to fight the Democrats. And the number one issue, Medicare for all. It's in a promo video. It's one thing she said she would fight for, and she
wears a mask. Yep. She ran on it. She brands herself as a Medicare for all advocate, and she hasn't fucking advocated it once. She's been too busy telling her trauma story that she has the privilege of telling, that she has the privilege of going to a therapist, whereas the rest of the people, the vast majority of millions and millions of more and more people without health care, do not get that privilege.
That's right.
So I'm not here to be a fucking sycophant to a politician. I'm not here to get told that I don't have empathy for a politician. I have far more empathy in my fucking pinky finger than any of these people do.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because we know the people who are really suffering. It's not AOC in the Congress.
Nope.
Sorry.
Not at all.
Should we get to some Super Rays, fam?
Yeah, let's get to some Super Rays.
Let me get to some Super Rays. We'll get out of this real quick. Guys, thank you so much for hanging in there right now. We have 79 watching. If you're on the...
Mikey.
If you're on the on the YouTube, there's a lot of people on the YouTube. How many people on the YouTube? 511. Get over to the Rokfin, Rokfin. Sign up for free and help us out. Johnny, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, I got Streamlabs here, so I'm going to try and show these because our alert box hasn't really been working. I'm trying to fix it. I've been on a huge email thread trying to fix it with Streamlabs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But let me try this. So Wendy Melly said, "Keep telling the truth, guys. Great work."
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if this shows up. Okay,
hey, Wendy Melly.
Okay, so that showed up on top.
Oh, Melly.
Okay, and then the next one, Francis Marquez. He said, "Thank you, Fee, Pasta, and Johnny. You're my favorite brain exercises. We really need more people like you."
Thank you, Francis Marquez.
Thank you.
Those are the two?
Yes.
All right, so let's get over to the Super Ray. Guys, you guys have been awesome. I also want to point out that we have 159 subscribers. We're looking to get to 200 by the end of the month. So if you got $9.99, you got your check. Go over there, help us out. Sign up. You get all premium content for the whole group for free by signing up for just one person. William K. McAllister, thank you for the Super Ray. We received a tip. Katie and Nick, thank you so much for the Super Ray. Katie and Nick said, I can't get a paid account on Rokfin, but at least I can tip. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Katie and Nick, we're looking into all those problems. We'll see what's going on. If you can't get it, we'll try to figure it out. But thank you so much for leaving us 2 Super Rays from Katie and Nick. Stephen Steeken. What a great name. He received a tip. Embald Fate, who got a shirt yesterday. I'm going to send out some shirts to Embald Fate or Embald Fate.
It's Embald Fate.
Embald Fate, fam. I got my little French there. Neo-progressives who complain you only cover Dems should read this. If Biden is the lesser evil, why does the mainstream media, Silicon Valley, and the government need to change laws and make people think the Hunter Biden scandal, a real story, is Russian news?
Exactly.
Wow. Thank you so much. Listen, they unconstitutionally changed a lot of these laws.
Bam!
And they got away with it. They used the pandemic, a crisis, as cover to get in there and game the system their way. And that's what they did. That's why it's great when that Wisconsin hearing, one of the congressmen, the Republican congressman, calls them out for that. It's a shame what you guys did with this whole thing. Heather Clark, she gave us a Super Ray. Thank you, Heather Clark. Jackie Pago. Love the shirt, Fee.
Fam.
Jackie, hit us up. Give me your address. I'll send you one. You're an old-time donor. You're an old-time Patreon, an old-time lover. We love you, Jackie.
He's fam.
You've been with us for so long. Let's reward you. We'll get you a fam shirt just for you, Jackie. The Convo Couch at gmail.com. Locker, thank you so much. The more they attack you, the more street cred you get. That's right. First they'll laugh at you, then they'll make fun of you, then they'll smear you, and then they'll join you. Barbara Weiler, thank you so much for the Super Ray.
We're on the smear part.
Yeah, we are. Mandy Zimmerelli. Look at that name.
Zimmerelli.
Mandy Zimmerelli.
Hey.
Gay Phi. The Convo Couch received a tip from Mandy Zimmerelli because Mandy is awesome. Kimberly S., thank you for continuing to talk about this issue, Convo Couch. Got to expose election fraud no matter who is running.
Exactly.
Kimberly S., we've owned this issue, and we're going to continue to own this issue, and it's really not that hard. Johnny says it all the time. Just go to your local place and see what's going on, and you'll say, wait a second. And in my personal opinion, nobody in their right mind can say that Joe Biden legally won just by simply looking at the system in play and how it's laid out. Even without the smoking gun, I would say, listen, it might appear that Joe Biden won, but I can't stand behind it because our election system is ridiculous. There's so much manipulation. Way too much. Josh Krullick, look at the question now. What do you think of Christina Olivo? Amazing person, amazing candidate. I hope she doesn't run in the Democratic Party. She knows how we feel about this. I think she is awesome.
She's awesome. She went to Assange for a vote.
Yes.
She was there.
We talk about that. It was so funny because the day before she's like, come in here and pray with us. And we were like, all right, whatever. We joined a circle. And I felt like my skin was like kind of, the hair was standing up.
Okay, whatever. I was like, I'm down.
I was just like, wow.
Don't speak for me.
She was so powerful about it. And the next day they said they wouldn't extradite Julian Assange. I'm going to pray with Christine a lot more. Ronaldo Morales. Hello from Naranjito. How do you say that?
Naranjito.
Puerto Rico.
Woo!
Rico. Suave. Great job. Thank you so much, Ronaldo. DE. Thanks for your continued coverage of the fraud surrounding the past election. At the Convo Couch, I really appreciate your hard work. Listen, it's not just the last election. It's all the elections. Until we get that system straight, we all have to be election integrity activists today. We all have to demand the data. It's our data. It's public data. We own it. They keep trying to shut us out. Tomorrow, my story will be talking about what's going on in the Arizona audit and how they duped the people. They actually told the people that they've had 4 audits. No, you know what they've had? They've had 4 system checks of the machines. We'll talk about that. It's such a fucking dupe. It's a deep fake, fam, and that's what they're doing all around. You know, those memes when people said, Joe Biden won Georgia for the 3rd time. Like, no. They haven't had a serious fucking audit or recount there. It's ridiculous. Andrea, our elections and seeing how we have been and will continue to be manipulated make me sick. No friggin' democracy here. What a crock of shit. Says Andrea. John says, Pastor Jardula, the voice of reason. Thank you, Josh. I love that guy. Nordy, thank you so much. Nordy gave us a tip to the Convo Couch. And also we have T-Can. Thank you so much, T-Can. We love that. You say that name.
Misha Kui.
Misha Kui. Thank you, fam. All love. Misha Kui. Tom San. Much love. Tom, much love to you.
Rocky, I see you.
We see you, Rocky. We have over $100 in tips today from you guys. We have 85 people watching. That's amazing. Once again, get over there if you can. Sign up for a membership if you can. We got 159. The goal this month is to get to 200. YouTube has demonetized us, ladies and gentlemen. I think a lot of you already know that. That's why we've been directing people over from YouTube. Oh, that was out there.
Like there was a crash.
There was a crash outside.
Yeah, so we've been directing people from YouTube to Rokfin. So sign up for Rokfin or just, help us out in any way you can via PayPal, Streamlabs, Patreon, whatever it is.
We're done,
and we're, but we're done, guys.
That's
we'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, also reach out to YouTube on Twitter and say remonetize the Convo Couch.
If you can,
help
ask
us
them
out.
on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or send them an email or whatever it is you can do.
Yeah.
Some channels have gotten their monetization back. The fam here, Niko, myself, Franco, and Graham Elwood have not gotten it back. So.
Notice that. And that's and it's because of stories that we tell, just like the one we did for almost 2 hours today. Thank you so much for hanging in there. Thank you, fams, for slowing me down when I was getting a little bit too excited. I think it was an awesome show. There was a lot of information, and we're going to continue to talk about this stuff no matter what. They're not going to shut our voices. We're going to continue to talk about elections because elections, that is the vessel, that is the mechanism which they keep their control. If they control who's selected and not elected, then they control everything, and you don't get Medicare for all. You don't get any green climate control. You get nothing until we can get the people in that are going to fight for us. So for Pastor Jardula,
Fiorella,
Johnny Sue on those 1s and 2s.
Convo out.
Thank you for hanging in there, guys.